All right. So first thing as usual, I don't think there's anyone here that's new. No, wasn't Robin here last month? Oh, well, perfect, because I have a slide for you then. New members intros. Let's start with Robin.
Hi, I'm Robin. Started basketball in June. I don't know what else you want. So,
What's your favorite color? What's your favorite ice cream?
What's your most embarrassing landing story? No. Whatever you want to share.
came from skydiving. Came forward to doing some nice long XC flights next year. And yeah, getting to everyone here.
Awesome. Is there anyone on the call who would like to introduce themselves? Perfect. All right. A little bit of news. We have a windsock in the Highlands. This is in the Central Park, you know, the normal spot that we land, or call it the tennis courts, which is a bit of a misnomer because we land on the baseball courts, as you can see here.
Baseball courts.
Sport ball.
It's in the landing zone in the Highlands. Try to land in the wind.
That's cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I should say, Mark Whiteside, like, basically drove this whole process. He also provided the pole. The club provided the sock and the frame. So yeah, he did like basically everything. All right, safety talk in reach. So last month we talked about flying places that are not Tiger. Some places that are not Tiger don't have cell phone service. So having an inReach is very helpful in these situations. Sometimes you can use your radio to communicate. Sometimes it doesn't work. If you're in Eagle Creek and you're gonna land not in the LZ, you oftentimes your radio won't work to communicate with whoever, wherever they are. So if you don't radio them from the air, they're not gonna know where you are. Because once you're on the ground, your radio is not gonna work. So you can use your inReach to get a retrieve, which is nice, because then you don't have to hitch down a road that sees like 8 cars an hour. Tracking is good. If you crash or you land somewhere funny and you can't get yourself out, having it automatically tracking lets people, it narrows down the radius of the search area. And Austin had a point here that's like, if you're gonna, like, 2-minute tracking is a lot better than 10-minute tracking in regards to this, like, narrowing down the search radius for where you've disappeared, by like a factor of, I don't know, what's the math? 10 squared minus 2 squared square, like, yeah, the square of that difference. So yeah, there was an accident that Austin knew about where it was the difference between checking 100 square miles and checking 10 square miles or 5 square miles or something. I don't know if ultimately would have mattered in that specific case, but and then XeFind, XeTrack are good. These are 2 different websites. XeFind is probably what's more popular here locally. This website is run by Dave Wheeler of Weather Station fame. To get added to XeFind, you have to email Wheeler and he will add you himself. There's no like front end to create an account or anything. And you get sorted into like a region. So our region is the one at the top for like the Pacific Northwest. Another one called XeTrack is managed by Mike Vergala. It's kind of like a more modern take on this kind of idea. You can organize your own groups. I can create a group and I can add Kia to it without her permission. So I can like group people up however I want, but then anyone else can go in and modify my group. You can sign yourself up, things like that. These help with retrieve. 2 anecdotes here. One is like a guy had a heart attack, spiraled in and landed in the big cow field on May Valley, off May Valley Road. And his thing was on the ground and didn't move for a while. So Wheeler went out and like checked on him. And ultimately it didn't make any difference. But like it becomes visibly evident to someone just like scanning the website, which like some people do. I do this when there's like something like suspicious going on, even if you're not like capable of hitting your SOS button. The other thing that it helps with is getting a retrieve. One time I landed in Fall City and Yuri came and got me. And instead of leaving, he was like, oh, Meredith's like 500 feet over the ground over there, even though Meredith's wing is like fucking invisible. And so we just like scooped her up and made like her retrieve a lot easier because we knew where she was and that she was coming down. So that's what an inReach is for. Use your inReach, especially if you don't have service.
So let's say that you're overwhelmed by the choices of what you're supposed to do. Is there like a recommendation on how to get started? What gear to buy and how to get set up doing the thing?
Buy an inReach Messenger, probably is Mini 2 or Messenger. Set it to like 2 or 10 minute tracking. You can pick a plan based on how much you think you'll fly and how much you think it'll cost. I always keep the unlimited 10-minute tracking plan on so that I have a good incentive structure to just always use it, always turn it on when I get to launch and not be like trying to wait till the last second to turn it on. That works well for me. And then get on XE Find, because around here, that's primarily what we use.
They are subscription-based plans, and there are like activation fees for the service. The mini ones, battery sucks, so if you see one used, probably shy away from it.
My mini one's fine. Maybe all the used ones suck.
They need to be quite a bit better.
I think the Messenger is even better,
The
right?
Messenger has a very long battery on it.
Is that the one that
I
goes
leave
on the
mine
screen?
Yeah, it has a very small screen. You can do very little from the device itself. It's almost all app related on your phone, but the battery lasts a really long time. I leave mine on constantly because of the way I travel, so family can watch where I'm at.
Yeah,
And so it's the Messenger is.
so you can still like press SOS.
It's
Yeah,
not
absolutely. It
SOS.
has a cover on the SOS button, so you can't inadvertently push it.
Yeah.
And if you're not an expert voice with your USHPA membership, there's a lot of other companies on there, but Garmin's on there, you get a discounted. Anything Garmin on there, they're like $250 for any two maybe. Oh, cool. So if you don't have an expert voice account, you should get one. It's one of the perks of having the USHPA membership. There's a bunch of other brands with other random stuff.
All right, Lucas, you said some like European shit that I don't understand. Do you want to explain yourself?
Oh, sorry, wasn't mute. Yeah, so there's also PureTrack as well, which they use in comps in Europe, which is really good because you can kind of see people's like elevation and it like takes into like other cell service stuff. So you can add inReach, you can add Skylines, you can add XE Track. So it combines all the various like tracking services in like one feature. And Skylines is super easy because it's like you just literally download it, you hit on, it pings the GPS tower, and it's just really easy to spot as well if you're like needing. It refreshes a lot faster, kind of a lot more in real time than the inReach. So I think it's like a nice little middle ground as well, and it's free.
You have to have cell phone service for it to work.
Most of it goes off the towers. Like, if you're flying in areas which at least has half decent like 3G, it will work. But yeah, probably not as good if you go in real deep, and that's where the inReach comes in handy.
Cool. There's no such thing as deep. We also have a comment from Val or Val2, which I assume is Tandem Val.
No, the opposite, not a tandem valve.
It is not tandem valve.
So within Reach, what I found is if you record IDs of your peers when you fly, you can land and message them, which is quite useful. But only if you ask them before flying what your InReach handle is or whatever that is.
Yeah, I think it's free as well, right?
It's either it's cheap or included into whatever your plan is. But like you
Yeah.
landed out, your friend is landing somewhere, so you can request his coordinates or communicate with him.
Yeah, and if you don't plan ahead, like Val described, you can text your friend who's not in the middle of the wilderness, and then they can text your other friends in Reach that they get their link from XE Find. But obviously playing telephone is really slow. But that's like a backup plan you can do. I've done that before in a pinch.
Speaking of your inReach links, right? So if you have your inReach spot, whatever you have a unique user ID that'll basically pull up, you punch it into a web browser to pull up a map with your breadcrumbs on it, right? It's really, really good practice to have that link either in your profile notes or whatever of your Telegram, WhatsApp, whatever messenger you choose to use for paragliding. I know it would have helped with some recoveries of people that I know in the past where we know the person was out, they were missing, they had it in reach, nobody knew what it was, how to get a hold of it. So if that's just there and somebody's like, oh, I haven't heard from James, he was supposed to be back tonight. And he's been uncharacteristically quiet Thursday. So you can pull up his, even if you're not on XC Find or XC Track or any of the other things, you can pull up his website and at least look and see what's he tracking and where is he. So that's a really important thing to do. I think that's
Also replace the default carabiner, or better yet, put it in a pocket or something. The carabiner that you reach comes with is not.
Personal experience of that one.
And if you're on XC Find,
Yeah, relates to that.
And if you're on XC Find, give Wheeler a couple bucks every year for maintaining the site because it's pretty great.
Yeah, there's a download link on or a donate link on the website.
I usually just give him cash.
He loves cash. Yeah, so he's happy to take your cash. Although he might need to show
Don't
it
forget to
more.
do that because he does a lot for us.
Yeah. Wheeler does a lot of things for us that are kind of invisible work, so it's not just the XC fine that you're paying for. All right, with that, let's move on. Pro-social behavior in Lyft. I feel like we kind of have the choir here. I don't know if we really need to go super deep on this one, given our audience here, but I guess it's not bad to remind people. I put these in kind of, the first four are kind of, I thought, maybe the four most important things in that order here. So the most important thing is don't fly into someone else. The second one, and these scenario specific might switch order. Don't fly into the terrain. Around here, a tiger like flying into a tree is probably not as bad as flying into someone else. I don't know. Like most of the time. Yeah. The third one is to fly predictably. So if you fly in a predictable manner and the people around you are paying any amount of attention, you guys will tend to not fly into each other, right? Flying erratically makes you more likely to get hit, even if technically you followed all the rules or whatever. I don't know if any of us here have done this, but like it's good not to auto rotate through the gaggle. And like specifically what I mean by this is like if you're in a climb with a bunch of other people and you're like tip to tip with other gliders and shit, and you're like barely able to keep the wing open, then like maybe you should leave, right? Like if you're having trouble keeping the glider flying or flying the wing in the direction you intend to fly it, manipulating the toggles to accomplish the like end that you're trying to accomplish, it's not a safe choice to continue to be in that thermal, especially if you're doing it near other people or a lot of other people. So ridge rules, this isn't always like the clearest thing at Tiger because you don't have like some super neat ridge, but you turn to avoid head-on traffic, you turn to the right. Don't pin people against terrain. Is there any other like ridge rules? Don't turn into the terrain if the guy can't turn into, if the other person cannot turn right because there's terrain, then you are like doubly responsible to turn right to get out of their way.
Okay, fly up with fan for a few seconds, so let's.
Yes, it's also okay to bomb out so you don't kill anyone.
Yeah, I just want to add there's a counterpoint to joining the gaggle. If you're turning in a thermal and somebody's a mile away but coming your way, don't have a conniption fit. They've got time to come in behind you. Like, which I've seen a couple of times. People get upset that somebody's coming to join them. Like, you don't own the thermal.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get more into that in a second, I think, when we talk about kind of like the way how to share a thermal. One thing I wanted to mention that I think might be mildly controversial to the, to the extent that anything would be controversial. I like to do 360s and a lot of us like to do 360s in positions that other pilots might not want to do a 360. They prefer to continue doing 8s at that height or that amount of terrain clearance. And so my belief here is that generally like whoever's there first kind of has the priority about what like method to do the climbing. So if someone's already turning 360s close to the terrain and you want to ridge soar it, you're probably shit out of luck. But also putting aside temporal precedence, like the more conservative strategy probably gets precedence. So if someone wants to do 8s and someone wants to do 360s and it's not clear who like owns that climb, you should default to the more conservative strategy and like respect the person who has like that more conservative decision making there. What else do I have in my notes? We already said go away if you can't control your wing. So this one, I think we all know here. If people are flying in a circle in a climb, you want to join in such a way that it's not disruptive to them. One strategy to do this is to like, go wider around until they pass you, or there's a variety of things you can do to join nicely, and you can read books or whatever about how to join nicely. But specifically the thing I wanted to say here is like, don't fly through the middle of the fucking thermal. Like if you're going to be thermally flying, you need to have situational awareness. You need to look at what other people are doing. If there's 4 people and they're all seem to be turning in a circle, that's like probably a good hint that you should go in a circle and not like through the middle of them. Let's see. Turn the same direction as whoever was there first. People will fuck this up as long as you fly. So once they fucked it up and they're below you, then you need to turn the same direction as the person below you. I'll put a caveat on this. This only matters if they're gonna outclimb you. So if someone's 100 feet below you and they're a shit climber and you know that, then you probably don't have to change directions. But then if all of a sudden they're 30 feet below you, then they're outclimbing you and you probably need to switch directions.
Person on the bottom was right away.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, if the person's so far below you that you don't interact, then it doesn't particularly matter, right? There's two scenarios that I think warrant special call out. One is egg beatering, and the other one is when everyone's like flying around the outside of the thermal. Does anyone want to give their opinion on what you should do when people are egg beatering or flying around the outside of the core?
The two people are going opposite directions, yeah. Or it kind of ends up happening when there's like
Sometimes it's like the
a
same.
thermal over here, these people are turning right, and there's a thermal over here, these people are turning left, but then eventually those thermals coalesce. And then that's what ends up happening, and so at some point, just yield. Like, collect, the best thing you can do is just yield.
Yeah.
Turn the direction as everyone else, the sooner you yield, the better it's gonna be.
And in general, like fly predictably, it's better to break the rules and yield to somebody else, even if you're in the right of way. Like if you're in the right of way, but in somebody else's mindset,
Yeah,
you're in a bad spot.
you're wrong.
You're gonna climb pretty slowly at that point.
I have heard some stories of people being like, I got so close to hitting that person because they refused to move over. It's like, what were you doing?
Yeah.
You slow down, go fly somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, don't hold on to your pride so hard.
Yeah, there's like very little scenarios where, I mean, it really means much at the end of the day around here, if you just decide to get that one little turn, you know?
Yeah. I think the first three bullet points are like super salient in all these scenarios, in all scenarios, basically. But what I would generally say here, once you've observed the first three bullet points, is like whoever's climbing faster is right. And you should follow them because they're climbing faster. And that's like the whole idea of being in a climb probably is to go up as fast as you can with the wing open.
Number 40, your first three is don't be an asshole. Like, you're taking,
Yeah.
if I do this, I'm an asshole, then yeah, you probably are, so.
Yeah, being an asshole is like not a great thing in the paragliding community. Because it's like people know who you are. Yeah.
And even in competitions, you're still an asshole. Nobody likes you.
Yeah, and everyone will know who you are. Even in a comp, they'll figure it out by the second or third task. All right, I think that's. Oh, yeah.
I was assuming flying here, if you were below the top of the ridge, then you were following ridge rules, and you're always. Giving in, right, everybody's kind of like ridge story. And then as soon as you found thermal and you're clear at the top, then you enter the thermal. Is that just
Yeah,
Well-
and what I've seen scenarios where people are thermaling from way below the ridge line, but they're out there thermaling, you know? I think it just depends on what the day it's happening, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, people do it. People thermal below the ridge, people eight above the ridge. And you know, people are gonna do what they do, so you gotta fly
I
with
think
them.
it depends, that's a good
Yeah.
answer. Depends.
That's always the answer, right? To paragliding questions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thermal. Check more times than I count, so I definitely, when I fly, I don't think of it as every time I'm below ridge, following ridge rules. I kind of just look at the environment, make sure I'm not cutting anyone off. Go from there.
The only other thing is there's also a lot of divide of skill levels. There's people who've been flying for 30 years and there's people that have been flying for 30 flights that just got their P2s. So I don't expect everyone to know everything at any one time. So be accommodating as much as you can with reason.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to talk to someone if you end up landing in the LZ with them too, and you had a disagreement or like a questionable decision you saw in the air, like it's super worth walking and being like, hey, were you on that? Oh, I was on this one, like this is what I thought, what did you think? I've had a few of those recently, and they were just like very new PTs who were like, oh, I didn't know. It's like, great.
Yeah.
Like,
Please
you
do
know,
that.
yeah, like let's help bring up, you know, all members of the community.
For all of us, yeah. Something that I've been seeing a lot with the new P2 graduates is they're like learning to thermal and they're either, let's say they're turning right, but then they either hit the edge of the thermal or it's the turbulence and they're kind of like, their head is right, but then they start pulling some left brake and they start going like straight, and they're like, the whole gaggle gets screwed up, or there could be like people coming around the outside, like to merge, so just be like super head on the swivel for that, see all the time.
My experience with a lot of the newer pilots is that they really like to make big circles.
I think big circles too.
No, I mean, even by Steve standards. What I'm trying to say is, you could just turn inside them a lot of the time is my belief. Cause they've fallen out of the lift, so it's like, whoop, just, you stay in it,
I would just assume that they're not checking their shoulder though.
yes. But they're probably not gonna spin their wing because it's really hard to spin an Alta, so they can only turn so fast. All right, I think that's all you have to listen to me for tonight. Now the main event,
Josh,
Alex,
sorry.
Sit up there.
you can do whatever you want.
TLDR, don't be an asshole. Yeah, you can leave the thing for sound if you want.
Sure.
Are you up here and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm gonna share. I figure I could share from Zoom. We can see if that works.
Oh, I need to unshare. Oh, I already did.
You already did. Bam. Why is it not showing up now?
'Cause I
There you
think
go.
it's showing
Uh,
his
Maybe
screen
put the
though.
Zoom up on the-
Oh
You
yeah,
need to put Zoom.
yeah. Can you put Zoom on the main screen? We just have your face right now.
Darn.
Which,
Sorry
you
about
know,
that.
I don't mind that.
That's good enough.
Cool. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Oh, this isn't my crown.
Oh, sorry. Just kidding.
Yeah, my name's Alex. If I haven't met all of you yet already. James texted me last night at almost 10 p.m. and said, "Can you talk about hike and fly tomorrow?" So that's why I'm here.
And I also texted you like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I was expecting it. Yeah, I like to suffer. So maybe that makes me, I'm not the best pilot in the room by far. I'm certainly not the best hiker in the room by far, but I do like to suffer a lot, and I like flying a lot of new sites. And I like thinking about flying new sites and how we can open new sites in Washington gets me really stoked. So I figured I would just kind of talk a little bit about my journey, and if I was like sitting in a chair 3 years ago when I learned how to fly, what I would want to hear. So it may be relevant for some, if not, no worries, feel free to tune me out, but these are kind of the things that the couple of like high level items that I think about when I go hike and fly, and some of them hopefully would be new for you guys. This is a picture of Austin and Tyler, by the way, on top of Psy, which is a nice fun launch, which maybe some of us are going to fly tomorrow, TBD. My high level corporate pitch deck, what are you going to learn and who is this for? So I'll start, I wanted to like go over what I think about when I go hike and fly. So like what application software I'm using. Westy showed up with the Caltopo shirt, which is great. Yeah, you're repping. I love Caltopo. It's like for anything non-flying related. I use it for alpine climbing. I use it for canyoneering. I use it for trail running, all that good stuff. I use Google Earth a lot just to check and see what might be launchable. That's hit or miss. Sometimes Google Earth data is very recent. Sometimes it's not. James is a map expert, so he can tell you all about that more than I can. And then, yeah, there's Gaia, which is for looking at trails, but I use that a lot for navigation, but fat maps, any of that kind of stuff works as well. What's up?
Rest in peace, Fat Maps.
Rest in peace. That's right. Forgot about that. Is it part of Strava now, or is it gone now?
Strava killed it.
Strava killed it. Great. Okay. Yeah, and then like a little bit like general considerations before you fly. Fitness, fuel, gear, mindset. I think hike and fly should be for everyone. There is some aspects of hike and flying in Washington State that make it a little bit harder than it would be in other parts of the world. I used to mountain run competitively and still do sometimes. So fitness and fuel is like a big thing for me. And I have some general recommendations on how you can move in the mountains and try and stay in a good mindset for flying. And then like some general things about like go, no go criteria. I don't really want to spend time on that, but I just have like one slide on it. and then hike and fly racing, which is what I've started to do the last couple of years. I've had the opportunity to take a sabbatical from my job and do a bunch of hike and fly racing in Europe. So I have some good experiences, some experiences that were very opening for me as a pilot, and I've flown with a lot of really good pilots in hike and fly. So I've learned a few things from them about what risk really means, because hike and fly is more risky than just flying. For many reasons. You're closer to the ground a lot more than you would be when you go XC flying, and reward, how that comes into play, and then overall strategy. So let's get it going. The holy trinity of hike and fly planning. So the first thing about hike and fly planning, we live in the Cascades. Does anyone want to try to name these Google images? These are two valley systems in the state of Washington. If you name them, I will give you a beer.
Left on the middle fork.
I was gonna say the right one.
The right one is before. All right, Steve gets a beer. The left one is the Napiqua Valley up in Glacier Peak Wilderness, but kind of just a fun thing. Yeah, I mean, this is the state of, like, if you want to go open a new launch in Washington, this is what you have to deal with. I had the opportunity this spring to fly up the middle fork, which is the image on the right, a few times, like 3 or 4 times. It pulls a lot of valley wind. So for newer pilots, valley wind is a big thing. It happens pretty much every day at differing degrees. And it's different than many. So it changes throughout the day, and it changes significantly. Can be no wind in a valley at 10 a.m. and there can be 40 kilometers an hour of a wind in a valley at 4 or 5 p.m. So it's very like day dependent. And when you hike and fly, you need to take that into consideration. So yeah, I think, like, in general, in order to hike and fly, you need to have some stoke, because it kind of sometimes can suck to bushwhack and hike up 1,000 meters, but also you need to have a lot of caution. There's kind of like little micro decisions you make on takeoff, where you fly, where you land. If you have a lot of experience, people in this room do, in other sports like climbing, backcountry skiing, I think you think about those things better than most people, or even skydiving background. Like, you have some idea of what is risky, but there's a few things in hike and fly that are a little bit specific that I'll talk about. And be weather curious. Jesse, who you guys might know, a pilot up in the Bellingham area, he is, every time I go and fly with him, he's always trying to figure out what's happening with the weather, regardless of if it's a good day, it's a bad day. We're just driving up to launch. I'm picking him up on retrieve and I'm driving to the train station. He's like looking out the window and looking at the clouds. So I think, like, the more curious you are with weather, the better, even if we understand it or Cliff Mass doesn't understand. So yeah, I think most people are kind of weather curious in here, which is usually a good thing. This is like a fun little, I mean, it's not showing up great, but this is like a time lapse I took at Sci last week, sitting on launch. And I did walk down. It is over the back, confirmed. This is what we call katabatic flow. It happens very often at Sci, pretty much every day. Not every day, but pretty much every day. There's a lot of, like, I mentioned valley winds. I'm not a weather expert by any means. I'm weather curious. There's all kinds of stuff that you can learn about weather, localized weather systems I will get into. But just know that if you are going to hike and fly, the main things to worry about are late day. Like, if you're going to hike up something and launch at sunset, just try not to force it. Really sit there for a few minutes and try to understand what's happening with the weather. It can switch very quickly. I've been sitting on Sci and it goes from 5-10 mile an hour up the face to, in less than 3 minutes, coming down over the back at 5 miles an hour. So it's like very switchy depending where you are on the mountain, what the wind's doing the day, the local valley effects, things can change really quickly. Tree rotor, like turbulence, I think is a big thing in the PNW. A lot of the landing fields that we have like 150-foot trees. I mean, Tiger is one of the best examples of those on strong northwest days, or even strong south days. When you're setting up for approach and coming in, you'll feel the rotor, especially in hike and flies if you're landing in a riverbed. Like, if you get stuck in middle fork and you have to land on the riverbed, it may look good, but when you get lower to the ground, there can be a lot of rotor. And personal experience. Yep.
Flying XC, like some of the elementary schools are super rotary.
Yeah. Even like going north up the Carnation, Duval, like I've landed in big fields and not had a good time coming in. It'll feel great, and then you get right on the tree level and it's not so nice, but I know everyone is very experienced with that. So in regards to like planning, I think there's like 3 great sites you can use for maybe optional. Gaia is kind of an optional one for hiking. The first one, like Google Earth, great way to find out whether a site is going to have somewhere that's launchable. So I think everybody kind of knows what Google Earth is, what it's used for. Let me just an example, right? Looking at Sci, because I live in North Bend now and I'm a Sci person. I'm a Sci guy. I fly Sci all the time. So yeah, Google Earth, like if I was gonna go look at a new site, and we were before like Westy and others, we were talking about like cool new launches we could potentially look at in this valley. But yeah, like if I'm gonna look at a new site, the first thing I look for is tree cover. And I try to look for areas obviously where there is not tree cover, which Sci is very limited. There's only a few areas that don't have significant tree cover. So that's kind of the first thing I'm looking for. Then I'm looking for like bailouts and LZs, keeping in mind rotor that might be there, keeping in mind local valley flows that might be there, keeping in mind what the wind is doing for the day. So those are like all the things that are going through my mind. Sci, the main launch is, depending on who you ask, either right here on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side underneath the haystack. And both of them are not the best launches. There are problems with them in terms of snagging your brakes and all that stuff. I would not recommend any P2 to go up there and try to fly it, but they are definitely launchable. There is problems with rotor from the northwest that we were also talking about before I presented today. So if you have questions about Sci, feel free to ask me, but the main landings are Tanner Landing down here. There can be a lot of rotor right here.
Showing the Zoom, so just to be clear that
Oh.
not Tanner.
You were showing a very tree bridge.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, it's like zooming in, zooming out. Yeah. So these like 2 green fields, this one is Tanner Landing, where my mouse is. Whoa, there it is. So both of those fields, like you can land at. There is tree, there is rotor, especially with the valley wind. Usually flows from left to right across the screen late in the afternoon. I've flown Sci 30, 40 times, and in the late afternoon, it's like you can guarantee there's going to be valley wind coming from the west. So if you do land in this field, land on the right-hand side one and give yourself lots of space from the trees to where you land, obviously, as most people would do. But, you know, some people choose not to do those things. So that's up to them. There's also Torgerson Park, which is off the screen, which is a bunch of baseball fields, which is another good one. But yeah, I mean, most people know how to use Google Earth, Google Maps. Another useful thing, if I find somewhere that might be a launch, is using CalTopo. So some of you probably have used CalTopo before, but a couple of things that are specific to hike and fly that I find useful is like the shade relief maps. You can get an idea of really how steep something is, which you can't really do on Google Earth. So in this case, green is less steep and purple, black is very, very steep, like a cliff band. You can also draw little profiles. So I use this all the time for doing like alpine traverses and stuff. If I want to have an idea of what the route looks like, it'll generate a little profile for you, which is right here. So you can see exactly what the grade is at a certain point along the line. And then if you expand that, it'll tell you all kinds of fun stuff. It'll tell you, what's the tree cover look like? Is it shrub? Is it forest? What aspect ratio is it? What's the slope angle? So yeah, I use this for not just flying. I use it for all kinds of stuff. But if you're gonna try and figure out what the site's gonna look like, or you're trying to do a new hike and fly somewhere that hasn't been used, this can be, yep, it's CalTopo. Another useful thing specific to hike and fly that you can use is they have a sun exposure, which is super fun. So you can tell it today at 8 a.m. only the east faces are gonna have sun. So if you know the launch is right here, you can go to, 1 PM today, and now you can see that there's only shade on these northwest faces. So I use this not all the time, but especially if I'm looking somewhere where I'm trying to understand what's happening with the local weather systems and I haven't been there before. And you want to know what's shaded and what's not at what time of day. This is also another nice thing that you can use. There's all kinds of stuff for like cell coverage as well. I mean, CalTopo is a massive thing. Yeah, it's kind of fun, especially with like valley stuff. You can go to 7 PM and you can see Rattlesnake Ridge have a massive shadow over North Bend. It's totally frozen now. Great. Okay.
Is Caltopo still a free service?
It is still a free service. Yes,
Are there
there's
a limit? If you-
there's like pro data. So this is parcel data and like certain USGS stuff that's built in that's pro, but just everything I'm showing is free. Yeah, they have a bunch of different layers and cool
Do you
stuff.
pay for the service?
I used to have like a pro version. I don't know. I got access to it through a Mountaineer group or something, but I don't have it anymore. So, do you have pro service, Westy? Yes. Westy's wearing the CalTopo shirt. So,
Also the 3D layer, I think has much better like elevation data.
Yes.
than Google Earth.
Yes,
So
exactly.
like you saw the top of style is all like squished
Yeah.
on Google Earth, and it'll like show much better.
Yeah.
But that's
Is that today, there's some LiDAR scan up to that area, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do they have so much LiDAR? They just want a lot of LiDAR?
It's all free.
Oh, they just,
It's all
they
like-
just completed LiDAR data.
It's all government LiDAR. I think.
Okay.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I mean, I knew it was better than Google Earth.
Yeah, not
Do they have a
necessarily.
mobile app or?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They have a mobile app. Yeah. So I think like if you're trying to figure out whether something's launchable or not, this is super useful. Or even like the time of day where something might start shutting off or changing. Like if you look 7 PM today at Sci, already most of this area of launch is shaded. So, if we had gone up there today and sat on launch during this club meeting, we would have experienced it switching probably, and it was blowing out of the east like crazy. So it might have just been a giant rotor fest, but we take rotor boy up there maybe. So that's a great one, CalTopo. Hike and Fly Planner. This is the last one. I'll show. So this is a European resource, but they ported it to US to use for various things. It's very simple. Click a point on the map. Come on, baby. And then it shows you shaded where you can glide to.
There's also a way to send links of this, but it's very fucked up.
I would send a link, but
I have the email with the guy who wrote it, and I can send it
Sweet.
to whoever wants to know, but it's a fucking pain in the ass.
yeah, it is a total pain in the ass.
Like if I wanted to send you this.
Yeah. But you can't just send the link and then just.
You have to build the URL and it needs to have the right coordinates in it.
So you can see like the glide from Sci down to Tanner Landing is like a 3-to-1 basically. And then the shades here, so this represents 5-to-1. You can go into the settings. Come on, and then you can change your glide ratio. So I'm on a single skin and I'm getting headwind. I can't make it anywhere.
Can't launch.
I'm on a speed wing. Okay, maybe I can make it here. So yeah, you can mess around with this stuff, like especially if you are really trying to like, I flew off somewhere which may or may not be allowed to fly off somewhere earlier this year, and I use this to figure out if I can make it back to the trailhead. So good for stuff like that.
This is where Hike and Fly Dreams gonna die, is this website?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can have a lot of fun or not so much fun. Yeah, on this website.
You're
Yeah,
like, damn, this is a sick launch. You know, I can land in these trees.
yeah, yeah. Or you just get a hero glide and you
I
just
hope
blow
that I
past the
can
red
make
point.
8-to-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, you find yourself just increasing the. Stop coming back.
Yeah.
No, it's just like a weather forecast. If you put it in point, and there's no good LZs, you just creep up the
Yeah.
glide ratio a little bit until you find, okay, now I'm gonna. Whatever.
Exactly. The last one, Gaia, I don't really think I need to spend that much time. It's like any other map service that you would use. I like it because it has streams, and camps, commonly known campsites, so it has like water sources, that kind of stuff. If you're gonna do something more remote, I've actually used it quite a lot on doing like multi-day traverses, that kind of stuff. And then weather, you guys know more about weather than I do, so. Yeah, so before you go and fly, you've done all the planning, you're like, sick, we're gonna go fly sides, looks really good today, it's southwest wind. Gonna go hit up Alex, we're gonna go up there. These are the things I think about in general. I think this is where, like, if you have a background backcountry skiing and climbing, it's super useful. There's an acronym. I got my AIRE training. I've done a few AIRE trainings now, but my first AIRE training, they had an acronym called FACETS, and it's kind of a funny acronym, but I think it's very important because I think hike and fly, as much of a physical thing that it is, it's also like 80–90% mental, as most paragliding things. And I think this is a good thing to bring up because the human factor of doing hike and fly, when you get up, you hike 1,000 meters to get to the top of side, and there's like 4 or 5 people, 2 people launch in front of you. It's great. The wind switches. You're like, wow, this sucks, but I'm gonna try it anyways. Even with this super sketchy launch, I'm gonna go for it. So the first one for facets is familiarity. So, you know, I fall victim to this. I've done a bunch of hike and fly in areas, and
Is the acronym like a list of heuristic traps? Or-
yes,
Okay.
pretty much. Yep. So this is like familiarity is like, hey, I've done this 30 times. I've hiked side 30 times. Well, this time is different, and it might be over the back this time. So you just like don't get used to the routine of just because you're doing something. I mean, it's even relevant on Tiger. There's days on Tiger where it's garbage or it turns east before you think it'll turn east, and back you used to be able to soar Kingdom really close, but now you're in the rotor and you don't know it yet until you come around the corner. So yeah, that's the first one. Acceptance or hold my beer. Peer pressure. Yeah, I mean, I've fallen victim to it. I'm sure other people have fallen victim to it. You see, you're up there with somebody you respect or somebody you want to impress, whatever it is. You do something you wouldn't do otherwise. Don't do it. Just hike down. There's really no reason. We do this very silly thing, which is very fun, but nobody cares except for people in this room. So there's no reason to force something. Commitment. So I've heard this one from a lot of people, and this is where the fitness part comes in. If you know, hiked up Psy and you're exhausted and you get to the top, you know, Austin has told me I'm not hiking down regardless of what the conditions are, because it's, you know, 3 or 4 miles to hike down and you have your massive bag and it's heavy. That's where it's I think this is probably the one that's most relevant to paragliding, because people, when they do a hike and fly, it feels very bad to hike down with heavy gear on your back. So just keep in mind when you're on launch and try to like think, why am I doing this? And is this really the right thing to be doing? And it's easy to say it in this presentation, but it's not always easy to do it in the moment. Expert halo, another one. There's like when you learn about backcountry skiing, they talk about all kinds of examples of this, like an accident in Stevens Pass that happened 10 or so years ago, where just because you're with someone who is a certified expert doesn't mean that they necessarily are thinking about all the things that are going on. So just because I hike up with you to Psy and I've flown it 50 times doesn't mean that there isn't wind coming over the back and maybe I didn't notice it, or maybe I'm in a bad mental state. So even if you do go somewhat with someone, and I know Jesse preaches this as well, he's like, tell me if you see something. Don't be afraid to not see something.
I feel like this also goes both ways, that if you're going with a group of people that you are much more experienced than, you know, if you find yourself in this like mentorship role, you could put yourself in a situation where you do something that you otherwise wouldn't because of other people here.
Yep.
I think it's good to look at it like both ways.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess last is scarcity. So I think we definitely get this in the same way that you do for backcountry skiing, is like, we waited for 2 weeks. It's been high pressure. The weather has sucked. I haven't flown in a month. I really need to fly today because the weather is good and the forecast is good, but maybe your mental state is not good. So, I mean, I've had that before. Fortunately, I haven't gotten to a point where it's gotten me into an accident or something more serious, but I think it's definitely something that happens to us a lot, just as paragliders in general. So that's the general, that's my, I won't even call it a safety talk, but more of just like, I think there's a lot of human factors that come into paragliding. And when you introduce another factor on top of that, which is hiking, I think you get a lot more of these kind of heuristic traps that James mentioned. Yeah, when I fly, or when I go do hike and fly, you don't have to do this, but I try to eat very often. Some people that I hike with don't eat at all. They choose not to eat at all. That's totally up to their discretion. I try to eat at least 300 calories an hour while I'm moving. I eat mostly carbs. If you're non-carbs, it's fine. Eat whatever you want to eat, but don't like get up to launch, not have anything to eat, and then try to make good decisions while you're bonking. I think that's like the biggest thing. I also add a lot of electrolytes. Given my background doing endurance things, like I've gone down deep on the rabbit hole of how to fuel properly in the mountains. Most people sweat at least 500 milligrams of sodium an hour. So if you're going to go out and do a hike up Psy and it's 90 degrees out, bring salt. Don't be dumb. Don't bring nothing. Come to the trailhead with no food, no water, like somebody who's not on the call today that I've hiked up Psy with before. Yeah, so I think like anytime some subtle shade that's being thrown. Yeah, so I think this is a thing where if you're just on the shuttle and you go up Tiger, it's maybe not as big of a deal, but when you hike 1,000 meters, you make way worse decisions. This like I actually have a coach that I use for training in the mountains. And he is a guy named Scott Johnston, who maybe Wes you've heard of, but he talks about this like study that they did with the military where they looked at M4, which is a firearm, and they looked at qualification, which is how many targets they can hit before and after a rucking session, which is like a heavy carried pack. And even basically the best people that perform the highest at the actual skill-based qualification, in many ways it's similar to paragliding. It's like requires a lot of high motor skills and reaction time. After they do a 12-mile ruck, it falls off dramatically. And these are people that are already highly trained in endurance things. So just like throwing it out there, if you're going to go do a hike, you probably are going to suck way more as a pilot when you launch than when you were on the ground, or if you're taking the shuttle up to Tiger.
Especially probably if you're not like
that's where fitness does help.
athlete.
Yeah, so like this curve like will go, less down if you have more fitness. So if you're gonna like launch into the rotor, and this is a thing like in the X Alps all the time, right? Where they're like they hiked 100 miles today and they went up 20,000 vertical feet, whatever the hell Kriegel does. He can do that because he's very, very, very fit, and I've hiked with him before, but he is an animal. But all the time they're flying in the rotor and they're operating like at the limit of what they're able to mentally do, but they've trained to do that. So just keep that in mind when you go fly into the rotor after a big hike and fly. Yeah, things you can do to increase your survival rate. Yeah, I think this is the biggest one that none of us really talk about, but check in with yourself. Sounds kind of obvious, maybe sounds a little bit like not tangible, but yeah, what's my mind state, right? Did my dog die? Is work really stressful? All that kind of stuff. It's just like I feel like when you hike and fly, it raises the bar. It's just another level where all of these things that maybe didn't come into account when you were doing a fun ride on the shuttle, it starts becoming more and more important as you like stack these bricks of danger. And then kiting, I went up yesterday with somebody that failed to launch many times, and it was pretty obvious his kiting was not in the right state to fly Psy. So I think like Gasworks is a great place to do it, especially if it's working, but most of the places that you're launching in Washington don't have nice like manicured slopes with even footing. So if you can find somewhere, or even like if you are practicing at Gasworks, pretend that you're on a boulder field, and you have to keep the glider off the ground, like the floor is lava. Every time your glider hits the ground, it's snagging a brake line, and then you might be popping it or something like that. Those things are important. I could use more practice on doing that kind of stuff, but yeah, kiting is super important. More conditions you experience, the better your judgment gets over time. Yeah, anytime I hike up Psy and I hike down, I feel like I've gathered more data. So I just keep gathering more and more data, and I figure out like, hey, this time it switched over the back an hour and a half before sunset, but back when it was a high pressure day, it was more like 30 minutes before sunset. and you like I make little notes. I have like a notebook for all my training and just write little notes in it. So all that stuff you don't have to do. I just think it's useful. And then when you're hiking up, like I will look at the canopy of trees as I'm hiking up and say like, oh, looks like it's coming from the west based on what I see now at 1,000 feet. Like, is that lining up with what I saw on Windy? If not, why? Is it a local effect? Is it a thermal popping off? Yeah, use the time to your advantage as you're hiking up. Cool. Gear choices. Yeah, gear you have is it's what you got. Keep it simple. I will say if having a smaller wing is I said necessary, it's very beneficial for a lot of hike and fly sites in Washington in particular. I think, when you're in the Alps, and we were talking earlier with Julius, like if you have a big grass slope, it doesn't really matter. Here it does. Like there's a lot of restricted launches. It makes a big difference if you can take a 15-meter single skin out and bring it up in a boulder field versus if you have a 20-meter. So maybe not something like if you're just starting off as a P2, I wouldn't tell you to go buy one of these things, but if you do want to do hike and fly seriously in Washington and consistently, I would look at getting a smaller wing and obviously do all the kiting and that kind of stuff, but just keep in mind. And then bigger versus smaller, there's benefits to having bigger wings. They generally perform better, easier to handle, but again, like sometimes you just need less space. You need the glider to be smaller and you can get away with having something that has less margin. So I have like a variety of different sizes of wings, and I use them for different things depending on what I'm trying to do. But I realize not everybody can do that.
Those light dual surface wings, well, I don't know if Steve can, but like I can thermal that. Like I can thermal an 18-meter dual surface, and I can go like cross country on it. The day is right.
Yep, they're really, nowadays they're pretty, Austin, I watched Austin take a 16-meter and thermal 1,000 feet above Psi.
Yeah, Austin top landed the 15.
Yeah.
5.
Yep.
Like you can, if you're a small guy. Austin's actually not even that small.
He's
It was
a
180
round
pounds.
I've told him that to his face, so I don't mind that being on recording.
But yeah, like the dual surface wing, you can do like real flying.
Yeah. I think all these
And they're
things
fucking tiny. I can put my Code 18 back slip with the back protection and the reserve in like a 23-liter bag. And then I can thermal it.
All these things in my mind are optional, but if you want to do a lot of hike and fly and you want to consistently try out new sites, which I think is super important for progression, you should be flying other places that aren't Tiger as much as you can. I kind of made it my goal in my first 3 years to like fly at 10 different sites that had never been flown before, try out a bunch of different sites. I think it's super useful to have it as a tool. This stuff I'll skip just because I'm running a little bit over on time. So like a couple like final considerations, and then I'll talk about hike and fly racing for like 5-10 minutes. Yeah, if you have some like streamers, like anything works, really doesn't need to be fancy. Bring them up with you. Don't just like streamer everything in existence. Try to be as much leave no trace as possible, but they can be a significant benefit for figuring out where the rotor is. And a lot of times they'll be sitting on launch and it'll feel great, but right behind you, there's something popping off that you can't see. So especially if you're flying a site that is not standard or doesn't have a bunch of online information available about it, or you don't have like a guide or someone that's flown there a lot, yeah, just be very cautious about the hidden sharks that could be around you. Hiking poles can work great. Like if I'm gonna fly a volcano or something, sometimes I'll put a hiking pole in front and behind, streamers on both. And then when I'm ready to launch, I'll pick them up and go. Practice estimating like wind strengths. I'm kind of a proponent of it. I do it with my heart rate a lot. Like I usually am able to tell my heart rate within 5 beats per minute just based on how much I'm moving. I do the same thing with wind strength. I try to like guess what the wind strength is and then compare that to what was on Windy. A thermal popping off in front of you is not the wind strength. So I try to give myself like at least a 5 to 10 minute window where a cycle can come in and leave before I launch, unless I'm sure that this is, in the range of what I'm comfortable with. Obstacles, aborting, I don't think we need to talk too much about that. yeah, don't self-lower from a tree if you don't know how to do it. Best thing you can do is I always bring like a very small tree kit with me that's like a throw line and some doubles, some slings, just so I can like secure myself if I do need to rescue. I don't always fly with a rad line or some other 5mm. For XC flying, you probably should, but in general, I don't think people should be trying to self-lower unless they know what they're doing. Yeah, those are the general things. Racing. Yeah, conditions are not always recreational, as I'm sure that Jesse is here now, he can tell you all about. Yeah, I would, before going into a hike and fly race, there's many forms of racing. There is racing that are single day competitions, where I'll show you some examples of that. So those are things that you basically have a task for the day, like you would in a normal comp. You do the task, and then you end at where you started or at another finish point. You get a score, and then you do that day after day after day. And in Europe, there's lots of those. Like every weekend, somewhere different in Europe will have that type of event. Then they have the bigger races like in X Alps, which is a multi-day event. I think most of you guys know what that's all about. But yeah, you finish the day, and then you start the next day where you finished. And they generally have rules associated with that. Yeah, this is your boy Kriegel. He's got lots of like tips about hike and fly. I think until you like really, the best way to learn about hike and fly is just go do an event. Unfortunately, in the US, we don't have events other than Red Rocks. So if you ever get the chance to do Red Rocks, I think it's great. If you don't, Europe has a lot of hike and fly events.
One thing I'll say about the X Red Rock is the first thing that he has on his slide here. Conditions are usually not recreational.
Yeah.
So if Gavin runs a task and it's blowing 40 Ks, like
they're not going to cancel it.
Most of the people I see here, like, probably shouldn't watch a paraglider.
Yeah. Yeah. And I found out the hard way of like only flying for a year and going to Red Rocks with a low BGO and figuring it out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I still flew in 30 Ks of wind, but it's okay. Multi-day races, yeah, are definitely like a very different strategy to single-day races. And I can kind of like show you an example of what that would look like. So I figured I've done like 7 or 8 of these races, like just going in Europe, and I have like some experience of what it looks like. So I've loaded one up into Sports Track Live just so we can look at like a typical task of what it would look like. And then in general, like if you're interested in doing hike and fly racing, come ask me. I'm happy to tell you about it. There's a website on FAI now where they start tracking these. So hike and fly racing is very new. They started recently actually calling these Cat 2 events, which is, if you know FAI, that's like what a traditional racing style would be. They call them Cat 2, and then they call super PWC events or super worlds, they call them Cat 1s. Traditionally, there's been no category for hike and fly. So, and the Red Rocks is still no category, which I don't know why.
No, Red Rocks is a Cat.
Is it Cat 2 now?
I was like the 8th ranked hike and fly pilot. Gavin doesn't know how to use the WPRS.
There you go. Okay. But yeah, this list is not exhaustive. So this, like, if you want to be like, hey, I want to do a hike and fly event in October, I don't see anything on this list. There probably is one. It's just that you're gonna have to like search for it. Unfortunately, there isn't a great one website to find all the events. This will just do the major events. So you can start on the FAI website. They have a paragliding hike and fly category, and you can just check it out. There are some that I would recommend. In Switzerland, they actually, as you would expect, are extremely organized, and they have all of their events listed categorically, and they update this on a weekly basis. So there's one in Bellinzona in September 20, which is a great place to fly. And then October, there is 2, and then it starts next year in May and June, July. This is another great resource you can use. And then another resource, final one before I show like a Sports Track Live of what a day would look like at one of these races. This is an app called Burn Air. It is like basically Kriegel's main supporter for many races. He's made this app. Every hike and fly event in Europe that I've been to has used this app to track your location and also for the task waypoint files. All the color things that you see, these are little notes that he put in the app. and it is extremely detailed. The app has like a hike and fly planner built into it. So it shows you glide ratios to different ridges. It shows you cables. That's what all these red lines are. It has all kinds of like useful XV planning. It has SKU diagrams. If you click on the map, you can find those. So it's basically like a complete hike and fly XC paragliding app. It has everything. And they use it for a lot of the tracking for the races. And he usually shows up himself. He's a super nice guy. But yeah, it'll show you like green means you can store this ridge. Red means do not go there. That is the tailwind. You're in the lee. Yellow means it's probably slightly in the lee and it will be very turbulent. So this is the Stubai Valley in Austria where I've done a race before, and I can confirm it is very turbulent in this valley. So it's a useful resource. I wish they had something like this for the US. We may never get it, but it's just useful if you go to Europe, you know, check on Burn Air. And if you go to a site, like if you go to Interlaken or something to fly, you can look at this and say, hey, I'm going to fly this site. I'm going to, you know, you can import all of these comment fields into Sky, Fly High, or any of your apps that you might use. So just keeping that in mind. I figured for the people that maybe haven't done a hike and fly race, like what's a day in the life like? So I pulled up a race that I did in Austria last year, and I'll open the IGC file. And then we'll look at it in Sports Track. So again, I'm a kind of a noob to this space, so I did not win this event by any means. I made many mistakes, but I'll kind of just like give you an idea of what it's like what you could expect if you went and did it. This event was put on by a guy named Paul Guschebauer. He used to be an ex-Alps athlete. He has a series of events called Wanderbird. So this is his website. I'm not plugging him by any means, but if you do want to do a hike and fly event, I think he has about 4 every year. I think 5 now. They have different categories. So they start with a category that is for fun, and you can take all the lifts up. You do not have to hike at all. There is a category for chill adventure people who don't take the lifts but want to challenge, but they don't have quite as long of a course as the pros, and maybe they might take out some demanding top landings. And then there's a more pro category where you have to like top land at different places, and maybe the course line is a little bit larger. And all of them are day races, so it'd be like a 3-day weekend. You'll have probably 1 weather day. If you don't have a weather day, you'll have 3 full tasks. And then he does kind of events every night, usually like a hike and fly mentality workshop where Kriko will come in and talk to people about like what it's like to do a hike and fly race. So I've done like 3 or 4 of these now, and they generally all run pretty similarly. There's like this one that I'm about to show you. It's from day 2. Unfortunately, when you click this link, it'll take you to a link that doesn't work anymore. But this is what the tasks look like for the different days. So you have your fun category, tour, and hero. And then if we go to day 2, I'll show you kind of what it looks like. So we start down the valley. They put up like a giant Red Bull inflatable thing. They have a DJ. He's like pumping German house music in the morning. Everybody's downing espressos.
Are they still handing out Red Bull shots?
They're handing out Red Bull shots. Everyone's got tights on. Yeah. You're sitting next to Aaron Duragati on the as he's doing his little like interview thing. And then they basically like they shot a gun at one of them, which I didn't know they even allowed in Europe, but they also have like giant horns and things that they'll fire off, and then everybody starts running. So I wish I tried to import all of the tracks so you could show them side by side for this. But I guess I'll just like explain what happened during this day, the mistakes I made, and kind of what ended up losing me the day.
Do you tend to be like a fly fast and bomb out and run kind of guy, or like a fly slow and stay in the air as long as possible kind of guy?
I am the latter. Yeah. So there was, and I would say for single day races, that's something that is there's a difference, like in the multi-day races, it's definitely always better to stay flying. In the single day races, there are times where you just want to land and run. Because there's only so much time in the day and you basically need to get to an endpoint.
When you say single day races, you mean stage races?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yep. So this particular race, this task, the first waypoint was basically at the top of this mountain, which is about a 1,200-meter climb. So like 3,400 feet. And then there was another waypoint at the end of this valley. And then we basically had to come back across to the end of this valley and fly home. So it's roughly, it took like the winner took like 5 hours exactly to finish. But that's pretty typical. Like the events will last anywhere from 4 hours to like 8 hours is the cutoff. So everyone's like pretty closely packed in together. Yeah.
Alex, as you're sharing this, it might be worthwhile to look at the TV because most of the time it's lagging a little bit behind.
Yeah,
So
we got
as you're
lots of
describing,
lag.
we're looking at something different. Than what you're
Cool. I'll send out the link to Sports Track too, because I don't think you're gonna be able to see much with all the lag. Come on, baby.
Really slow.
It's very slow. I'll hold it here. So the first like basically hour is just us hiking uphill. There was like one decision point that was made where you could choose to go right or left. I just followed Aaron, Durgati, and Kriegel because I didn't want to make decisions. And there's usually like a core pack of like 10 to 15 people that are jogging / hiking very fast, and then behind that there will be a gap, and then there's like 30 people that are hiking very fast. Yeah. I wish this was a little bit better, but you can see like there's a decision point. So this guy, Gel or whatever his name is, went around. I went up the ridge with the rest of them. And then I guess like the biggest thing with hike and fly racing is it's not always good to rush. So I think when I first started, I would like run as fast as I could to launch zone 4, get my gear out, launch straight away, bomb out, run to the next turn point. What ended up happening this day, unfortunately, Sports Track Live is just not going to work. But what ended up happening this day is basically I got to launch with a few of the lead gaggle, and then we sat on launch for 20 minutes while everyone stared at Kriegel waiting to see what he would do. And Kriegel launched, and then there was a giant line of everyone trying to launch right at once. So that's how a lot of these happen, is like the couple people in the lead will make a lot of the decisions. And certainly it helps to be like in the area to understand what other people are doing. And then ultimately we did launch and we climbed out and made our way across the valley, which the very laggy Sports Track Live will show in a second. There we go. I'll just like skip forward. Yeah. There we go. So we ended up crossing the valley, and then there was about a gaggle of like 20 of us that was just trying not to bomb out. So this goes back to your point earlier, James. We're basically just survival flying. So we spent like probably a good part of 20 to 30 minutes just on the ridge soaring. And this is something that like Jesse first told me, which is like you have to be able to shift your mindset from like thermal flying to ridge soaring just to stay alive sometimes. So even the best pilots were not finding lift, but they also weren't bombing out. So
the reason I asked that question is because like Cody Holyfield and John Dorrance were competing against each other in Red Rock last year.
Yeah.
And John flew way more aggressively and flew way less than Cody, but John won.
Yeah.
Cody wasn't on the podium.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That will happen. I would say it depends on the task. And sometimes
Cody
it's
flew more than anyone else, and he was like
Sometimes it's better to just like cut your losses, and if you know it's going to be a really short task, you just land and run. And actually somebody on this task bombed out and then ran 60 kilometers to do the whole task, and he got
I ran almost a whole task one day, and I did well.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm shit at running.
So like it's super laggy, but like after 30 minutes, like a group of us caught a climb, climbed out, crossed back in the valley. And at this point, the valley wind was picking up. So this valley is like shaped kind of like a funnel, and all of the wind basically comes down the middle of the valley and then splits on this ridge that I'm about to fly into. And I wish that I could show this a little bit better, but it's totally laggy. Kind of seeing it. It's starting to get there. There we go. Yeah, so I almost bombed out again. So yeah, just staying patient. And then what ended up happening for this particular day is that the people who ended up winning the task, they had chose to stay even more patient than I did. And they sat on the main launch ridge for another 20 minutes after I left, and I watched them fly over my head as I was running up the valley to the next turn point. And then they tagged the turn point, turned around, and came and flew back. So like in general, like with hike and fly events, I think especially the day races, there's a lot of like little micro decisions, and even the best pilots make mistakes sometimes. But yeah, generally flying is better than running. You should try to do that. I think this format, like if you wanted to try a hike and fly and you maybe were a little bit worried about getting just wrecked on the climbing bits, this would be a good format to do. And if there's landings everywhere, and you can go get an ice cream while you wait for the task to finish if you feel like you don't want to keep going. Or you can sit up at a little refugio and get a little coffee and an ice cream. So this is like a good way to do intro. If you want to, I would not go to X Red Rocks as an intro. I love Gavin, but it's not a good intro hike and fly event.
Fucking hot. And weather was.
Yeah, but we don't have many options in the US, so it is what it is. And he's amazing steward for the sport, so we definitely appreciate that he throws it. But yeah, like if anyone has questions about hike and fly and how to get started or what to do, feel free to reach out. And I'm gonna try and maybe organize something next summer where we go to one of these events as a group of Washington pilots.
What are 3 resources you'd recommend to the nascent hike and fly pilot?
This one.
No, like
Number one resource. Yeah.
not in terms of like planning their own hike and fly, but like learning to do hike and fly, like any like videos or books or podcasts or something.
Yeah, I would say if you just like want, I mean, some of you probably already watch it, like Benjamin Kellett has some fun like full bit videos,
Yeah.
which give the general idea of what hike and fly is about, landing on ridges, launching from ridges. That's probably a good one. Paul Gusherbauer just released a book that's available that's all about hike and fly strategy and mindset. So that's coming out October 1st
In English.
in English. I just ordered a copy, so I'll donate it to the library when I'm finished.
We don't have a library.
We don't have a
Think about
library.
that.
Yeah, I'll give it to Kia, and then she can give it to whoever wants it.
That's good.
I feel like that's probably might be a good resource. What else?
What Keith?
Keith? Yeah,
Keith's doing
talk to
a-
Keith.
Keith is doing 2 hike and fly.
Yeah, like clinics.
Clinics structured like an Airy 2.
Yeah.
If you don't know what an Airy 2 is, you can ask me. The first and second weekend of October. So it's like 3 days. The first day is like you sit on a computer and you talk about theory and you look at the shit that Alex was showing us and you plan out your hike and fly.
Yeah.
And then the next 2 days are focused around trying to execute that plan.
Sounds pretty fun.
Yeah.
Are you gonna do it?
No.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think those are good resources. Trying to think of anything else. You can just ask me if you have questions.
So you're like hike and fly aside, that's just, you generally just doing super lightweight kits, wings, single surfaces.
Yeah.
Little slips, but then
Cody
you're doing
flies
these
his
comps,
full
you're
size
flying
off there all the
X
time.
Alps harness and.
Yeah.
your foot in your
Full size
flight.
wing. Yeah. There is like technically 2 years ago during the Red Rocks, there was a day that was too windy. People flew anyways, but it was way too windy for me. And I remember Stefan, who's a pilot from Leavenworth, packed his UL, his ultralight wing, mini wing, in his backpack because he knew he was going to run all day.
Oh, I did that.
And it's technically certified as a glider.
Yeah, read
So,
the rules.
if
I did
you-
the same thing.
If you read the rules and the weather sucks, you can just take a mini wing.
Switch.
And you can just use it to like do short little bops to pass a valley. Yeah. I don't know anyone that does that on like a big, like if someone were to do it on the Red Bull X Ops, I don't know what would happen. They just fly full size all the time.
I don't know, yeah, I read the rule, in the X Alps, you're not really allowed to like switch wings even to the same model wing.
Yeah.
But in the X Red Rock, the rules say you can fly any wing that's
Yeah.
16 meters or bigger, and it's okay to switch wings.
And there's people like even on these like little single day stage race thing, like I saw somebody was flying like a UL 17 meter or something. And he was like thermaling it a little bit, and then he would just go and glide and he would just run. And he was like a triathlete that like wasn't really an experienced paraglider, but he was really fast. So yeah. There's some strategy involved. But yeah, any other questions, people feel free to reach out and ask. And
Yeah, people fly like XL style kits off the side. I know people do that.
yeah,
Full size wing and all that.
yep, it's pretty fun. Just be careful. Cool. That's it. That's all I got.
Right.
Thank you.
You beat Kriegel and William.
Yeah,
A stage or a race?
a stage. Yeah, my lifetime achievement.
It's all downhill from all. Bye, everyone.